Joining us on the 6:30 p.m. edition of News on My Media Prime Television, women live from Douala, Cameroon's economic capital. My name is Fon Quinter. Begin today's edition of Prime News here in Douala, where flames have ravaged a section of the Persians ward and part of the mortuary of the New Bell District Hospital in Douala 2 subdivision. The population of New Bell neighborhood managed to subdue the flames before the arrival of firefighters who prevented it from crossing over to other parts of the hospital. Local and administrative officials in Douala 2 subdivision visited the site after the incident to assess the situation. Meanwhile, investigation has been opened to determine the cause of the inferno. Now, the Committee to Protect Journalists (CPJ) has published its prison census, which documents journalists jailed globally in connection with their job, as well as the list of journalists killed this year. According to the census, Cameroon is among the top 10 countries in sub-Saharan Africa's island Samathazas. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists (CPJ), the number of journalists jailed around the globe set another record in 2021, following the committee's analysis released on the 9th of December 2021. Invoking new technologies and security laws, repressive regimes from Asia to Europe to Africa cracked down harshly on the independent press. It was pointed out that the year has been a very bleak one for defenders of press freedom. The CPJ's 2021 prison census disclosed that the number of reporters imprisoned for their work hit a new global record of 293, up from a revised total of 280 in 2020. It is worth noting that 24 journalists were killed because of their coverage this year, and 18 others lost their lives in circumstances too gloomy to determine whether they were specific targets. In sub-Saharan Africa, CPJ's 2021 prison census and killed report says at least 45 journalists were jailed for their work, around the same as 2020, with worst jailers being Eritrea, recording 16 cases, Ethiopia 9, Rwanda 7, Cameroon 6, Benin 2, Somalia 2, Nigeria 1, DRC 1, and Central Africa 1. 2 journalists in Somalia and 2 in Benin have since been released. 9 countries have jailed journalists, up from 6 in 2020, but down from 12 in 2019. South Sudan, Mali, Burundi, and Uganda dropped off census since 2020, while new entries this year are Nigeria, Central African Republic, DRC. Eritrea emerged as one of the most censored countries in the world, with journalists detained for over 20 years without trial. Note here that most journalists are imprisoned on anti-state charges, false news, and cybercrime. The CPJ report says that no female journalists are behind bars, with all jailed journalists being local. No foreign journalist was detained, and the majority of those killed were local as well. Meanwhile, China remains the world's worst jailer of journalists for the 3rd year in a row, with 50 behind bars. The Organization for Gender Empowerment and Development has carried out a 16 days activism campaign to sensitize students on gender-based violence on women and children. The sensitization campaign, which was launched in Yaoundé, has as major target primary and secondary schools as giant gangsters.
Against gender-based violence in general and school-related gender-based violence in particular is the objective of the Gender Empowerment and Development Organization. It is for this reason that the organization coordinated and carried out a 16 days of activism to sensitize students of primary and secondary schools in Yaoundé.
Students and people are suffering from different forms of gender-based violence in school, and it comes from bullying, from torture, from physical violence, psychological violence, to sexual violence, and it is actually troubling the students. Most of the students that sometimes do drop out is as a result of violence, and in recent times we have witnessed violence that is also meted by students or teachers. So there's a whole lot of confusion in the school milieu, and GID is trying to see how we can help to conscientize people, sensitize people, break the myth around gender-based violence, and try to see how we can contribute to making the school environment a safe haven for all.
The organization used the 16 days of activism centered on the celebration of violence-related issues to join their voice for a change.
GID is part and parcel of this process. That is why we are celebrating 16 days activism this year, and we are shouting out for people to stand up, join in with GID, and see how you can contribute in your own little way to change the narrative that is currently obtains and makes students to suffer even in schools. We are all looking at a situation where we'll have a gender-sensitive curriculum in our schools, where we'll have a gender-sensitive environment, where no student is punished or is suffering because of their sex.
The sensitization campaign to end violence against women and children in the various schools was effected through social dramas and several other displays by the students.
This period of the year is where many activities, workshops, talk shops are organized to empower young girls and women to build their capacities, to teach them on their human rights, and to enable them to live in a society. GID is using this period of the year to sensitize all educational sectors in the center and the littoral region on gender-based violence on women and girls.
At the end of the sensitization campaign, the students were called upon to stand up and end school-related gender-based violence on women and on the girl child.
Away from gender-based violence, councillors of the Bonakuma Council in Menchum Valley Subdivision, Northwest Region of Cameroon have adopted the council's budget for the year 2022. The session, which held at the council town hall, was chaired by the mayor Ihimbru Solomon Kudi. Charles Akeba reports from Bamenda.
The third ordinary council session of the Bonakuma Council in Menchum Valley Subdivision of the Northwest devoted to vote the 2022 initial budget of the Bonakuma Council held at the council town hall. The session, which was also to give standing observation in respect of some of the Bonakuma councillors lifted to serve the country at different levels, chaired by Ihimbru Solomon Kudi, mayor of the Bonakuma Council. Addressing councillors, the mayor said the execution of the 2022 budget takes into consideration the 4 pillars of the National Development Strategy Vision 2030. Bonakuma Council, with over 70% projects realized.
All the projects we have marked, I have the impression that they will be executed completely, despite the hitches in some of them. But to be very frank with you, we have realized more than 70% of the projects already.
The municipality, with no revenue generated, no investment project carried forward, the mayor questioned if the present Anglophone crisis was conceived and launched in Bonakuma. No. Mayor Ihimbru Solomon Kudi reminded his councillors it's high time they pull together all living forces to eradicate the present social ill that has wrecked the buoyant economy of Bonakuma municipality.
Out of peace, we cannot pretend there's some change, but change, we still need to be careful and we are moving gradually. We think that in the days ahead, in the months ahead, there will still be more change if we continue to preach peace, if we continue to work towards no mercy.
Councillors voted the budget for 2022, which balances in revenue and expenditure at the sum of 717,096,731 francs, witnessing a sharp decrease of 196,823,844 francs, representing 21% drop as compared to last year.
Social level will also be satisfied because the budget is a pointer to some key basic facilities like water, like classrooms for education, like routes, farm to market routes. Then we have in the evacuation of farm produce and other forestry produce. That in itself will enable us to know that we are functioning, and the farmers themselves.
Presentation and validation of the annual investment plan of the council, the councillors also deliberated and adopt 3 million francs to encourage education to deserving peoples in Class 6, 3 per public functional schools, for the 2022-2023 academic year in the municipality. Menchum SDO's representative at the budgetary session urged the mayors to council to work in collaboration with stakeholders for the return of normalcy in the municipality, lobby for more projects and ensure barrier measures to fight the COVID pandemic respected in the municipality.
In the southwest region, some 5 chiefs from revived villages under the Muyakot area have successfully gone through a 7-day fortification process to enable them rule the people with wisdom and integrity. Kuma Onore completes the story.
After the recent revival of some villages in Faku, which were lost as a result of intertribal wars, slave trade, and the occupation of the land by CDC, some 5 chiefs, namely Chief Nje Francis Enongene of Muzu village, Chief Eko Efamba Stephen of Meze village, Chief Gando Kinsley of Mehe village, Chief Maliva Andreas of Elimbi village, and Chief Moloa Tonga of Lower Ewunda village were coronated to pilot and handle the affairs of their villages. As culture demands, the coronated chiefs have successfully spent 7 days in the traditional tent known in the Bakuri mother tongue as Nambando House, where they communed with their ancestors to undergo spiritual empowerment, to be fortified to rule their subjects with wisdom and integrity. Chief Nango Beckley is the chief of Mone village, one of the newly revived villages under the Munyakot area. He says it has not been easy for them to see their villages revamped and thank the government for championing the cause.
Today, I thank the President of the Republic for the security, first of all, which will pass today for here. Yeah. Now the action, nothing I don't see, population don't see for the development. We did go on, and will continue for continued development. Okay.
In the same light, villagers of the revived villages expressed their readiness to work with their newly coronated chiefs for the development of their villages. They are equally inviting the entire nation to join them in the process of nation building and reconstructing their villages.
As you can see, we have a very vast vegetation here. We want to make this vegetation in such a way that we are going to invite people of goodwill to come and exploit the great riches, the great resources that are here. In fact, Muro village is very, very rich. So we are inviting people to come and discover the great riches of Muro village. We have a lot of timber. We have cash crops, you can see we have cuckoo.
It is worth noting that development can only be achieved through collective efforts. Henceforth, the entire villagers and external elites are encouraged to put their hands on deck to champion the development of their villages.
Now, as part of measures to address issues of sexuality and reproduction in adolescent women and young girls in Cameroon, Her Voice Fund Network has launched its strategy to fight HIV and AIDS amongst women and girls. Her Voice Fund launched the 2022 strategy yesterday, December 9, in Yaoundé. Get full details in the following report. Women and girls remain the most vulnerable to STDs, STIs and HIV and AIDS due to the delicate nature of their skin. In a bid to curb problems related to sexuality and reproduction, the project Her Voice Fund has been launched in Yaoundé.
HIV has been a daunting task from the first day in Cameroon. And looking at statistics, adolescents and young women has had a great number of people who are infected.
The project aims at supporting initiatives that provide appropriate response to the effects of HIV and AIDS on adolescent girls, while ensuring that relevant policies and pragmatic changes are made to improve the well-being of women.
The objectives of this meeting are, first of all, to launch the Her Voice Fund 2022 to 2025 in Cameroon. Her Voice Fund strategy from 2022 to 2025 in Cameroon. And the second objective is to bring together adolescent girls and the policy makers to have a frank exchange with the adolescent girls, talking about the need and the reasons why they think they should be in platforms where decisions that are made concerning the prevention and treatment of HIV as far as they are concerned.
The event was equally an opportunity for adolescent girls and women to share their experiences with representatives of different organizations present.
It is not every day that a regular adolescent girl and young woman in Cameroon have the privilege of sitting face to face with policymakers, government officials and representatives, strategic stakeholders to articulate their plight with the confidence that solutions will definitely emanate and policies be formed.
Closing the one-day event held in Yaoundé, stakeholders took firm commitment to present their past achievements in the fight against HIV and AIDS and ensure women and girls are involved in discussions relating to their well-being. On our health page, our reporter Bokengo Wadi talks about depression, which remains a life-threatening health hazard, usually characterized by anxiety, trauma, and genetic issues. Bokengo Wadi tells us more about depression.
Being a mental health disorder that is characterized by constant anxiety, stress, trauma, life-threatening health conditions like coronavirus, depression is the leading cause of suicidal cases globally, affecting mostly youths in a community and country like Cameroon.
Depression is a mental health disorder that is characterized by persistent sadness or loss of interest in our daily activities. And unfortunately for us in Cameroon, this is something that greatly affects the young people.
Extremely overlooked by many who think depression is nothing short of a myth, it is important to know that the signs and symptoms for depression, as stated by Denise Biakop, a mental health advocate, are things that one deals with every day.
Common causes of depression, we have something like conflict. Now, this is something that we're already experiencing in Cameroon, for instance, the Anglophone crisis. Now, you realize that conflict has equally come with the loss of lives, and this is another cause of depression. I would normally say that the way you lose somebody, the way somebody dies affects the way we get traumatized. Now, we equally have things like personality. We realize that people with low self-esteem or people who are generally pessimistic are more vulnerable to depression because they are easily overwhelmed by stress or easily overwhelmed by their emotions. We equally have other existing factors that causes people to be depressed, such as neglect, such as abuse, such as violence. We have the gender-based violence, and luckily for us, this is the 16 days activism. This is a period of 16 days activism where we are advocating against gender-based violence. Now, we equally have things like poverty, which is a #1 factor that is affecting Cameroon's economy.
Nonetheless, depression, like any other mental disorder, can be managed, treated, and preventable.
Exercise, eat healthy, don't dwell on problems, don't think about them too much. Talk. That is why therapy is the #1 treatment for depression. Learn to talk about how you feel. Don't allow certain things weigh you down. If you feel sad, talk about it. If you feel guilt, if you feel that something is not going right, talk about it. If you feel like somebody has done something wrong to you, tell the person about it.
It should be borne in mind that depression can be hereditary, with an estimated 280 million persons worldwide suffering from direct and indirect mental health hazards born from depression, and about 804,000 suicidal deaths triggered by depression. The health condition is one that is life-threatening, daily, triggered by issues greatly minimized by our daily life choices.
And one day to the long-awaited Fecafoot presidential elections, football lovers have already made their predictions as to who will head the main football body in Cameroon. Dolingande was in the streets of Douala. She brought back the following.
Ahead of the highly awaited, most anticipated and disputed elections at the Fecafoot presidency, football lovers around the city of Douala, Cameroon's economic capital, have begun making predictions as to who will win the elections.
I believe Samuel Eto'o-Fils is going to win.
Moi, je pense que Eto'o-Fils doit gagner.
I believe, with the best of my knowledge, that Eto'o is going to win.
Eto'o va gagner, tu vois, non?
Seydou, Ibrahim Bobonjoya, Eto'o vraiment, ça ne le mérite pas.
Eto'o-Fils, le Pichichi, va gagner.
for me, I believe very well say Samuel Eto'o will win.
With many wishing that Samuel Eto'o becomes the new president for the Football Federation in Cameroon, we seek more to know the reason for this choice.
Parce que dans un pays d'abord, normalement, on ne devait même plus faire les élections, on devait lui donner ce qui appartient aux footballeurs.
My reason is that Eto'o has been an international player and he knows the tactics of football and he's going to revive Fecafoot in Cameroon.
Tout ce que nous voulons, c'est le changement. Les années antérieures, on a eu à voir ce qui s'est arrivé avec les ligues. Il y a eu les retards à chaque moment. Il y a certains joueurs qui ne sont pas payés.
He has all the way that he's going to advise the players and so on and so forth.
Je souhaiterais qu'il gagne parce que il a beaucoup de choses à apporter au football. Parce que grâce à lui déjà, Monsieur Seydou Mbonjoya a pris la présidence. Et maintenant, le contrat qu'ils avaient, Eto'o et lui, il n'a pas pu respecter. Donc Eto'o doit prendre pour faire respecter ce qu'il a voulu qu'il fasse.
Nonetheless, the interim president, Seydou Mbonjoya's worth is still much needed by a few minority to guarantee the smooth functioning of Fecafoot.
Samuel Eto'o normally give for campaign. For me, you are not even for campaign.
Seydou Mbonjoya, vraiment, c'est sa place, ça lui mérite. C'est pas de faire la publicité partout qui prouve que Samuel Eto'o va avoir ça. Le président de la Fecafoot, c'est Seydou Mbonjoya. Moi, je suis un Bamou 100%. Donc, je supporte mon frère.
While many sympathizers are hoping Samuel Eto'o's popularity, influence, and football expertise gets him elected as Fecafoot's new boss, many say should their choice not coincide with the final results of the elections, this is how the electoral committee would be regarded.
Je veux penser que le pays est corrompu. Oui, c'est tout.
There will not be no malpractice because Eto'o is already the favorite candidate for that post.
But if not something the voter, I don't get anything to talk. If you know win, therefore if you vote, you know we say my choice.
The clock is ticking fast, and the fate of Fecafoot's next boss depends on the 76 voters commissioned to represent the entire nation come Saturday, December 11th, 2021.
Telling on this report concludes the 6:30 p.m. edition of News on My Media Prime Television. Coming up at exactly 7 p.m. is Prime Hour with Kumlenat and his team. My name is Fon Quinter. Have a great evening and weekend in the company of more programs on the African Eye. We meet again on Monday for another edition of What's Making News in Cameroon and out of the country. Goodbye.